Tonight, a high-profile Saskatchewan lawyer says residential school denialism should be added to Canada's criminal code.
There needs to be consequences for people who are promoting hatred.
Also, in an effort to force decision makers to see the reality of homelessness, an encampment is growing outside Regina City Hall. Plus, after 3 weeks of work, the Path to Reconciliation mural is bringing color to downtown Regina.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, June 20th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. A Saskatchewan family is grieving the death of their 13-year-old son after a fatal ATV crash near Saskatoon. Wyatt Ewan had a passion for life. Now his death is underscoring the dangers of all-terrain vehicles and calls for change. Pratush Dayal explains.
She just had that amazing smile and curiosity and stuff like that.
That's how Myron Scoburn, a close family friend, describes 13-year-old Wyatt Ewan. The boy was at his grandparents' acreage at Pike Lake on June 10th when he went for his usual lap on an ATV.
Around 11:30 on last Saturday in the morning, and I got a first call that said that he was in a serious accident. And I was hoping and praying that everything would be fine. About 15, 20 minutes later, I got a call telling me that he has passed away.
Ewan was found under his ATV.
He had a mark on the side of his face, which was bruised. So that's an indication that, if the helmet was on, Ewan had not had that.
Scoburn says the teen usually wore a helmet, which is required by law in Saskatchewan, but he didn't that morning. Scoburn says perhaps due to the heat. According to Statistics Canada, between 2016 and 2020, 167 people died in Canada every year on average due to ATV collisions. In Saskatchewan, SGI data shows between 2012 and 2021, a total of 29 people were killed and 310 suffered injuries in ATV collisions on public roads. But experts say a majority of ATV collisions and fatalities occur on private roads and go unaccounted. The Saskatchewan All-Terrain Vehicle Association says while alcohol is often to blame in ATV crashes, more trails and more training would make a difference.
We've been lobbying the government for years to try and get some registration for ATVs. We've also, from that registration could be a fund that could help develop trails.
Physical training courses available, and I would highly encourage that before any parent allows their child, that not only their child, but they take the training course as well, because there's a lot can be learned.
Scoburn also says making training courses mandatory would help prevent accidents.
It's just one of these things that can happen so fast, if you have a child and stuff like that. So I think anybody under 18 really should be trained really well on these kind of things. Even older should it be trained so you know how to handle it. Because every year there's all these ATV deaths all the time.
The family is grieving the loss of Wyatt Ewan, who died just before his 14th birthday. Pratush Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A high-profile Saskatchewan lawyer is calling for residential school denialism to be added to the criminal code. It comes in the wake of a recent interim report by Canada's Special Interlocutor on missing children and unmarked graves. Jesse Anton reports.
Denialism is violence. Denialism is calculated. Denialism is harmful. And denialism is hate.
Special Interlocutor Kimberly Murray says the denial of residential schools and unmarked burials is on the rise across Canada. That's according to her interim report released last week. It found denialists in BC went so far as to try to dig up suspected graves at the site of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School.
There needs to be consequences for people who are promoting hatred.
Cree lawyer Eleanor Sunchild says residential school denialists need to be met with similar criminal and civil measures used to punish people who downplay the Holocaust.
So it's the same. If you deny that happened, if you deny the whole residential school system and its impact on Indigenous people and the trauma that was created from those schools and the deaths, then of course it should be seen as hate speech.
I just simply can't imagine the devastating impact that it would have
Last week, the federal justice minister said he's open to outline residential school denialism, and Saskatoon Tribal Council Chief Mark Arcan says criminal action should not be ruled out, but that the solution starts with education.
Yeah, we see it every day. People tell us, get over it now, it's over. And I'm like, man, people don't realize the pain and suffering that our people have went through.
Indigenous Studies professor Lita Kingfisher says public education is easier said than done.
I have seen in this last year kind of a growing sentiment amongst non-Indigenous students of like, enough already. We've heard it.
Kingfisher suspects misinformation online is partly to blame. That's why she emphasizes the preservation of residential school documents is also critical to be able to fact-check the naysayers. Jessie Anton, CBC News, Regina.
The chief of Pasqua First Nation is part of a group that has filed a proposed class action lawsuit against the province of Saskatchewan and the federal government. Chief Matthew Pagan says First Nations children in foster care are denied a federal benefit because of a Saskatchewan policy he calls wrongful. When an Indigenous child comes into care off reserve, the Ministry of Social Services applies to Ottawa for the Children's Special Allowance or CSA benefit. It's paid out monthly. The money is then put into the government of Saskatchewan's general revenue. Provincial policy indicates the money helps offset child welfare expenses. Pagan argues in the class action that all children, whether in foster care or living at home, deserve CSA benefits.
We'd like to see that through, again, dialogue and negotiation or litigation, we would like to see a positive outcome for those children that are currently in care and those children that were in care that are now reached the age of adult, that they should be entitled to what was due to them. And that is why we're challenging this. It's not just about the children that are currently in care, it's about those children that were also in care.
Pagan says about 60% of children in foster care in Saskatchewan are Indigenous. He says the CSA money should be put into a trust. After a child ages out of the system, Pagan says the money would help get them set up in life. The lawyers involved in this class action say they're confident they will be successful due to a precedent set in Manitoba last year. A homeless encampment is growing outside the front doors of Regina City Hall. Organizers say they want to force municipal decision makers to see the reality of homelessness. They originally intended to gather in Pepsi Park last week, but police told them to leave. So organizers moved to the front lawn of City Hall. What started as a small gathering is now a growing number of tents. Organizers are marking 1 year since Regina City Council passed a motion to price out the cost of ending homelessness. They're upset the money didn't make it into the budget. Mayor Sandra Masters has said she does not believe encampments are a good solution for the problem of homelessness. The city of Regina paid out a total of $1 million in other compensation to senior executives who left their jobs last year. As Alexander Kwan reports, the payouts are part of a huge turnover in senior employees at City Hall.
The city of Regina has seen a lot of changes since Mayor Sandra Masters took office in 2020, including in city administration. 4 of the 5 employees that make up the city's executive leadership team have either departed, retired, or been fired in the past 18 months.
The first to go was Chris Holden, who was an employee at the city for more than 40 years and served as city manager for nearly a decade. He was terminated without cause in February 2022. Now the city's annual accounting process has revealed that last year, Holden received around $86,000 in regular salary, plus nearly $850,000 in other compensation. The payout means that despite only working for 2 months, Holden was the top paid city employee. In March 2022, the city mutually agreed to part ways with its executive director of city planning and community development, Diana Horlock. She received $335,000 in compensation, making her the second highest paid city employee last year.
In a statement, the city said that the payments made to Horlock and Holden consisted of severance, vacation payouts, car allowances, retirement allowances, and supplementary pension payments. 2 more city executives are set to retire by the end of this year. All are part of the 115 city employees that make more than $150,000 last year.
We tried to ask the mayor about the turnover at an event Tuesday, but she refused to answer questions that weren't related to the Canada Farm Show. CBC also requested an interview with City Manager Nikki Anderson. Instead, the city provided a statement. It says, "New leaders bring fresh perspectives and facilitate change that strengthens the organization, keeping it responsive, vibrant, and healthy, and renewing the city's commitment to continual improvement."
With these changes, only one member of the city's executive leadership team has been in place since the start of 2022. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Bringing some vibrancy to Saskatoon Transit, this artwork unveiled today is the winner of this year's student art contest. Students Amina and Hannah from Chief Whitecap School were selected as this year's Best of Show winners. The winning pieces were chosen in collaboration with the Ramey Modern. Submissions were based on their reflection of the active transportation theme. You'll see these winning works on 10 buses around the city this summer. We'll be back after the break. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are looking to bounce back after dropping their home opener last Friday. The Riders faced their arch rival, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It was a tight contest most of the way, but the Bombers pulled right away in the fourth quarter, winning 45-27. Friday's score looks lopsided, but Winnipeg is regarded as one of the best teams in the CFL. Coach Craig Dickinson says the team is staying positive.
We hung in there. Now there's some negatives too, and we'll try to correct them, but I think overall that was a good performance by our team against a good team that we knew was going to be a tough out early in the season, and we just got to keep improving and slowly getting better each week.
The Riders are back on the road this week to take on the Calgary Stampeders on Saturday. Both teams will enter that game with 1-1 records. The Riders have already faced a bunch of injuries this season, but were able to welcome back offensive lineman Gerald Hawkins from a suspension today.
This weather update is brought to you by Crestview Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. What a perfectly pleasant Tuesday.
Yeah, just beautiful, especially when you consider the weather that we're seeing on either side of us in each of the other prairie provinces. Alberta, a cold day for you folks today. Didn't get above 7 degrees in Calgary. Very showery, rainy there. Snow still in the mountain parks of Alberta and into the BC Rockies as well. All the result of this low pressure system in behind it and all that rain. We've been seeing much cooler temperatures, but on the other side of us to the east in Manitoba, a very hot day. Temperatures were into the mid-30s in Winnipeg, the humidex value into the low 40s, and now volatile thunderstorms starting to fire up on this frontal boundary line. But for us today, we were caught in the middle of it, and we were sitting pretty for the most part and still are right now. Low 20s. This is seasonal for this time of year. Some of us just below 20 degrees right now, but still very nice. Now that low pressure system is in our province now, and that means we have seen some breezy conditions. Gusts up around the 60 kilometer an hour range in the Kindersley-Rosetown area today into the 50 range in Saskatoon, and still quite breezy, especially in central Saskatchewan and along the northern grain belt, but starting to diminish now. And that low pressure system still bringing through rain, of course, through much of central Alberta today, and some heavier pockets just north of Meadow Lake and through northern Saskatchewan today. And that separate system starting to bring some rain showers into southern Saskatchewan now and moving into the Regina area, where much of south central and southeastern Saskatchewan could continue to see cloud cover and shower activity through the night tonight. As that moves through, this low pressure system very slowly moving eastward. That means that northern Saskatchewan likely still going to continue to see rain overnight tonight and into tomorrow as well, but south and central clearing out tomorrow afternoon, and then a separate system bringing through a little bit of some cloud cover and rain early Thursday morning to the south as that system finally moves out of the north, but not before bringing about 5 or so millimeters through through especially far northern Saskatchewan tomorrow. Winds also going to continue to stay breezy, especially in central regions tomorrow afternoon. But as that low pressure center pulls away, we'll finally start to see those winds improve. Now, another thing that's factoring into these very strange temperatures that we're seeing is our jet stream, very much dipping to the south. That big trough that you see here. Cooler temperatures to the north being pulled down. But over the next few days, the jet stream beginning to straighten here. Zonal flow, that's when it moves in a west to east fashion without any ridges or troughs. And we should start to see temperatures continue to moderate in Regina and much of southern Saskatchewan and pretty much through all the province here. Starting summer on a bit of a cooler note tomorrow, though, but that is just below average for this time of year. Cloud cover building in as we head toward the end of the week, and maybe some showers possible for next week. Saskatoon, we may not even break 20 degrees for the first official day of summer tomorrow, and it'll be a bit windy as well. And then things getting warmer as we head through the rest of the week. So not a great start to summer, Sam, feeling more like fall, but we're going to quickly get there as we head through the week.
We've been pretty spoiled the last couple of weeks. I think we can take one day.
That's true. I think we can tough it out.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Traffic continues to be down to one lane on Albert Street Bridge in Regina while crews try to repair a collapsed stormwater pipe. It was discovered in a backyard on the other side of the bridge after a rainstorm June 2nd. The city's working on a temporary stormwater drain and will pump water from the broken pipe into the lake. It will include approximately 9 large pumps that will be activated during rainstorm events and ensure that rainwater actually gets into Wascana Creek. An update from the city this afternoon says they expect to remove the traffic restriction by the end of this week, assuming there aren't any unexpected delays. We'll be back after the break. The Prime Minister offered his condolences for the Canadian Armed Forces member who was killed in a military helicopter crash overnight near Petawawa, about 160 kilometers northwest of Ottawa. The Department of National Defence says 4 members were on board when the military aircraft, when it went down. It was part of a training exercise. 2 crew members were found by first responders and taken to hospital. DND says it is now a search and recovery mission. About 50 military personnel have been searching by land and water. Ontario Provincial Police and local fire departments are also assisting. Time is running out to rescue people in a submersible that was headed for the wreck of the Titanic. This afternoon, the U.S. Coast Guard said there's about 40 hours worth of oxygen left on board for 5 people. But as Alison Northcott reports, so far, the widespread search has yielded nothing.
The U.S. Coast Guard says the rescue mission is a complex and difficult operation, more than 600 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland. A search from the surface of the water to deep beneath it. The Titan, a 7-meter submersible, disappeared as it dove deep under the water to see the wreckage of the Titanic and lost contact with the mothership it had been communicating with. The vessel had been communicating with the ship by text message. Because it was going so deep underwater, it couldn't rely on GPS signals. But those messages stopped after about an hour and 45 minutes into the voyage. There are 5 people on board. They started their journey with 96 hours worth of oxygen, but it could run out by Thursday. The Coast Guard says it's doing everything it can with help from Canada's Coast Guard and Armed Forces, the U.S. Navy, and the company that owns the submersible, Ocean Gate Expeditions. But officials say it's an extremely complicated process.
You're talking about a search area that's 900 miles east of Cape Cod, 400 miles south of St. John's. So logistically speaking, it's hard to bring assets to bear. It takes time, it takes coordination. And then we're dealing with, 2 pieces of, you're dealing with a surface search and a subsurface search. And frankly, that makes it an incredibly complex operation.
Reportedly on the submersible, British billionaire Hamish Harding, described in a statement from his company and family as an explorer and an entrepreneur. Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman, chief executive and founder of Ocean Gate Expeditions Stockton Rush, and French Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet. The Coast Guard says it's trying to get all of the equipment it needs to the site, but it hasn't said how it would bring the vessel back up to the surface if it is found. Every hour counts in this kind of search, but the Coast Guard says despite extensive efforts, it still has found no sign of the vessel. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
People in and around Edson, Alberta cannot get a break. Fire forced thousands from their homes, and then came the rain. A month's worth of rain fell in a number of hours. It has forced local authorities to declare a state of emergency. Roads are closed and some infrastructure is taxed, and it's delaying discussions about when people who fled the fire can actually go home. And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
And after a little bit of rainfall of our own in Regina and southern Saskatchewan, we'll be looking at some clearing skies tomorrow, mainly sunny conditions at 14 degrees. And as we head toward the noon hour, that cloud all clearing out, sunny 19, winds a little bit breezy from the west. Saskatoon, a pretty similar forecast for you, looking at those mainly sunny skies, but winds a little bit breezier tomorrow. They're going to be getting close to 50 as we head toward the noon hour, not getting much warmer than 17 degrees. Of course, tomorrow, the summer solstice, that is when North America, or the northern hemisphere rather, closest to the sun, and we'll be seeing that at around 8:57 tomorrow morning, and it gives us some nice long daylight hours as well, over 16 hours of daylight, so may not be all that warm, Sam, but lots of daylight for us.
Always look forward to it. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we leave you tonight, tomorrow people will gather to mark National Indigenous Peoples Day. A special ceremony will be held in Regina to unveil a spectacular mural dedicated to reconciliation. A lot of people came together to make it possible, and our Louise Big Eagle followed along.
Almost as far as the eye can see, what appears to be a beaded pathway, running down the center of Scarce Street Mall. It's a mural called The Path to Reconciliation. It all began 3 weeks ago. 2 Indigenous artists from Regina took the lead in designing and installing the mural. One is Gina Dunbar, a Cree Métis mixed media freelance artist.
The first half is like 166 rows. It features 1,300 and something beads. The whole path itself is about over like 2,500, 2,600 beads. It's going to be a very large project, and I just want to see people be excited. I want to see people interact. I want to see people have conversations during it, and just take a piece home with them.
She works alongside Brandy Jones, an Inuvialuit and Gwich'in artist. We checked in with them earlier in the project, and they said they were ahead of schedule thanks to all the volunteers.
We are on day 7. We have planned this for about 6 months, and we've had plenty of volunteers come out today. We have people from the RCMP, as well as some from the French community.
Jones says she wanted to create something unique and meaningful.
So the beadwork, my friend Gina and I both thought that would be something very good to come up with that represents all nations, not just one, because that's something that you see throughout. There's also floral designs to represent every single culture around the world, because this is very much a joint effort, and the path to reconciliation is also going to be a joint effort.
And over the next couple weeks, it all began to take shape. The co-founder of Creative City Centre, Marian Donnelly, says it's been a collaboration with the Regina Downtown Business Improvement District.
It's just an incredible opportunity for us to do a visual representation of what does reconciliation mean, not to Indigenous people, but to all people. We are all treaty people. We all have a responsibility to be part of the efforts of reconciliation, to make sure that everybody is working together.
The project will finally be unveiled on National Indigenous Peoples Day. Louise Big Eagle, CBC News, Regina.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ethan and I will be back with more local news at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.